Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we have ourselves some tracks from an act named Howard Lewis off of their Survival Mode and Things Bandcamp exclusive release. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a track on the screen. Rather, the tracks, we've got 8 tracks total. We have got the demo versions as bonus tracks as well as the main 4. So we're going to listen to tracks 1 to 4 off of this album. The final releases from start to finish. I'm going to hear what we think. Should also note that I have reviewed Howard Lewis's work before, so it's good to revisit it. So yeah, let's go. Starting with I Don't Trust Myself.
I can't sleep without taking a pill and can't cope with the stress of it. And I talk a big game when it comes to survival mode and things. And I keep a history of pain and of my solitude. And I list a bunch of things so I don't lose my mind. But I
sensational reintroduction.
I don't trust myself, and you have had it with me.
There's a lot of character to the vocal performance as well. The combination of various elements within his mix is really satisfying to listen to. The combination of various elements within his mix is also really satisfying to listen to.
I can't get with the songs that I write and can't bend till my back will break. And I place you on a pedestal and I kiss the ground at your feet. And I take the path of least resistance if it's doable. And I smoke you out and leave you hungry for capacity. But I don't trust myself, and you have had it with me.
Seamless transition.
I guess I'll go on. I guess I'll combust without leaving such a mess.
It's really charming as well with the vocals on the sides there with the misty reverb tails and such. I love the brightness of the guitars.
I guess I will show
Cool response.
myself the door and never return to this place. But I don't trust myself, and you still put up with no. I don't trust myself.
I assume this would be the hook, wouldn't it?
You still care about me.
That's sensational. Again, it's been a while since I listened to Howard's stuff, but it's excellent. I think we found a really nice niche for ourselves. I think this track is about someone sort of dealing with their own sort of insecurities and their lack of faith in themselves and sort of equating it to the feelings of another person, their interactions and how they feel about them, you know, like from that perspective. There's a great sense of character and personality to this track imbued immediately through the charisma of the performance. It's incredibly interesting to listen to, Howard sort of evoke that and really sort of speak their truth. And I think a lot of the coloration from like the keys, guitars, the bass and drums and how they go at a semi sort of similar pace to the way the story is being told there. It's nice to have varying intensities, dynamic range to it. And all in all, just it's more like a show than a tune, if that makes sense. It kind of reminds me a lot of the music from like the 60s and 70s. It's far less concerned with trying to sort of pander to modern pop expectations and more sort of like considered within like serving the scene it's creating. Just before we continue on to the rest of the 3 tracks, this album releases on the 3rd of November, so we're going to be listening to the rest of these tracks on Music Bee. And now for track 2, what you
I
think?
can't be sure the things I'm seeing are supposed to be a sign. You can't rely on your muscle memory for things like this.
Loving the
So
pace
I
of the drums in
ride
this.
the wave of all the things I've collected this time. You can't be sure that things won't get awry or fuck up on the slide. I felt it hovering inside. It left me quivering outside. But I know when you think and I
sensational
know
transition.
what you say about me.
It's nice to have such a sort of a quick movement through it. Again, I know I mentioned in the previous track some of the influences in the 60s and 70s. I can hear some of those passages on the drums from like some of the early kind of Beatles work. It's incredible. The pace and the work with the contrast to the way we're playing those sort of warm, toasty guitar tones on the sides there. I'm just giving a lot for Howard to work with.
And so I went to get a therapist and talk it out at cost. Did that help? Did that sell the score in my head? Still not awake, with heart racing in my new creasing set on high. Fulfill a need, so I gave it up and numbed it all with weed.
Interesting balance here on the left with those backings.
I felt it pilfering my skin. It left me shut up from within. Still I know what you think and I know what you say about me.
It's just nice to have that switch up with the pentatonic phrasings with the basses and guitars there. It's nice to have the more of a cymbal focus away from the kicks and snares whilst the colors are allowed to interact there. The space where there aren't vocals just allowed that the backing is able to take a moment in the spotlight. Oh, solo section, nice. Oh, and it was such a sudden stop to it as well. It was really ferocious, but in a way which is still quite palatable. So I had another listen through the track just to get a bit more of a kind of a grasp on the track, and I think that this one is more about coping with the feelings of others whilst we're struggling with what's going on in our own heads. We talked about going to sort of like a therapist and sort of trying to sort of numb stuff with weed and using drugs to sort of cope and everything like that. It just seems like it's kind of the same, like you're letting people know, hey, I'm already going through a hard enough time, but I already know what you think and everything like that, you know. It's almost inviting people that while it's feel easy to judge, maybe they just shouldn't, you know. Everyone's got their own story and things are not always what they seem. It's good to hear that Howard was getting help if they were going through stuff, because this seems like a very authentic, sort of genuine performance, stuff they really went through. And I think that just outside of what I've talked about, how I love the technicality of the drum performance and the proficiency and how clean the chops are on that front, both with the cymbal grooves and the tom fills. It's also just really charming with the bass kind of bass patterns there, the guitars there, how they're nicely in unison, about with the what you think line and that sort of gap there, but also the backing vocals, how they came in on one side of the stereo field, and I think that leaving it sort of like, it's like the voices in his head and everything like that he's trying to hum. It's kind of symbolic of that potentially. And it's just, because it feels unfinished, it doesn't seem like we've found a solution to our issue, and I think that kind of makes sense with what we're talking about in the story. So in effect, that combination of elements is it's very efficient, and I'm really glad that we're writing music like this. But we got Out to Sea, track number 3. This is a longer track at 5 minutes 32, but that's good. Be interesting to see how we explore a longer, more, what longer form track to track.
Well, I just felt an undertow in my veins, and it's not right, but it feels like it's a game. Well, you took hold of the reins, and then we took our exits left, right off the stage. Which one of us will jump? Which one of us will work till we fold? It really begs the question of to whom this bell will toll.
Great use of vibrato there.
I think I saw a glamorous future ahead, but now it seems he somehow slipped right off the edge. Test all the wonders.
Great variation in the progressions.
Part of your next move. Place down your armor. This is what you came for. And if you don't like me, you can totally tell me. Try to bury me 6 feet underneath. And if you don't love me, you can send me out to sea. Try to wash yourself clean of my body.
Oh, ow. Those are some severe lines. 6 feet under, wash yourself clean of my body. It's ferocious, especially when you consider about what we were talking about, what you think, The theme is dire as well behind it. Very emotionally loaded.
And I thought that you would relent. A gap of space within our fake friendship. Perhaps this stings, perhaps it's too much to digest. But this is what will happen from your lack of any consequence. Tiptoe around this circus. Something else may lessen our purpose.
I love the inclusion and development of these harmonies in the second half. It's just a really easy way to differentiate the various sections of the tale.
It might even be a symptom of the stuff we're made of. And if you don't like me, you can totally tell me. Try to bury me 6 feet underneath. And if you don't love me, you can send me out to sea. Try to wash yourself clean of my body.
Great unison with the string. I mean, it's just parts like that where we have that short little break there where the instruments and vocals come together that is just incredibly harmonically satisfying.
I guess it makes no difference in the end, as long as we get out alive. Though things may seem to be a blissful way at peace, these blisters on my heart, they don't agree. Don't tempt me, wait and see.
Excellent use of the real estate here. Very dedicated solo. Excellent phrasing.
Totally tell me, try to bury me 6 feet underneath. And if you don't love me, you can send me out to sea. Try to wash yourself clean of my body. And if you don't like me, you can totally tell me, try to bury me 6 feet underneath. And if you don't love me, you can send me out to sea. Try to wash yourself clean of my body.
Linking it back. Yep. Really satisfying dramatic finish there, especially with those toms just kind of cluttering down like that. Kind of seems like the curtains dropped. This was an interesting track. It shows me we've gone for a kind of a darker kind of direction here. I mean, not that we didn't already have that in What You Think, but this one is a bit more somber and maybe even a little bit more jaded. We've got a sense of loss. We talked about going out to sea as if we're kind of coping with the fact that the person is sort of, we don't even know where we are, the fake friendship and everything like that. But then we're also like, well, at least we'll get out of this alive. And if that's what we've got to do is to sort of go our separate ways, then whatever. It's kind of vicious. And I think this again is a show of maybe some of the stuff that Howard has gone through with people they know. And they're really just speaking their truth and spitting it out on an open canvas. And what allows it to like really kind of shine is that we have also just not only got really compelling different ideas for melodies and harmonies within like the verse, chorus, and bridge and interlude sections that we come back to, and then we sort of like change little bits on, add sort of, switch up tails. We have little bits of overdub and ad-lib as well, with little sort of vocal runs in the falsetto bit occasionally. It's also just the fact that we have a really intriguing guitar motif in the background, which kind of arpeggiates while the drums have this kind of sort of like 8th and 16th note groove that still is a lot more subtle than we had in the previous track, but allows some room for the bass to kind of glide us along. A really stellar sort of bit of work with the keys later on, with like some really subtle organ tones there that have a sort of a kind of a wonderful charm to them that adds for a bit of glimmer in a track where there is a lot of more grim overtones. And the solo section there, I think, with the wonderful blues, kind of mixture of blues and jazzy phrasing there, without overplaying, is the icing on the cake. It's a really wonderful use of time, and I'm really impressed with what we've been able to do with this latest release. And then finally, we have Hurricane, track number 4 today, the final one for the set.
I wonder how it got this far. My body has run away from me. My thoughts can't catch a break at any hour. Believe me, I've tried everything. The drinks and the drugs, acting out all the scenes. But I lost their plots before they even started.
It's so intense.
Things are turning a darker mood. I've tried to kill the monster hunting me like food, and now I have no map to find my way around here. But my mind's a hurricane.
I mean, just how it hits. Mine's like a hurricane, but that dynamic range is really important. It allows us to really kind of pump out like this.
My mind's a hurricane.
It's sort of kind of therapeutic and mesmerizing, isn't it? Like it oscillates back and forth.
Sometimes I get glimpses of a time when things went on so goddamn very hard, and my mother was alive and everybody around was healthy. Silently I move through sludge, grab the horns horns of the bull, but it won't budge. And now I carry out my next plan with such trepidation. Lest I lose my grip on this, and the protocol is
tremendous sound
so
design.
independent. I must admit there were a few times I thought myself dead weight. Now my mind's a hurricane.
It just simmers with those bluesy intonations there.
My mind's a hurricane.
And the way the guitars just kind of really accentuate the stereo field on the sides. Make it sound huge. And a space solo. Reverse takes on the kid. Or is that like the reverb bus?
I batten down the hatches so that I can free myself from the pain I know, and then I plan my next escape from all the action. So the thing I've learned, much work to do, at least a major overhaul of my whole mood. You bet this full-time job might cover me in daisies. Now my mind's a hurricane. My mind's a hurricane.
Nice use of the major harmony there. Oh, the parallel major, should I say. And that's the album. The 4 tracks off of the digital record, Survival Mode and Things from Howard Lewis. Before we continue back to Bandcamp, I just want to sort of give my thoughts on a few points of this, because I know this has been a longer review and I actually wasn't intending for it to be this long. Hurricane has phenomenal use of dynamic range between the verses and the chorus, where we come down really gently for the parts where the vocals are almost by themselves. Sometimes we have almost nothing with the vocals. They're there with the silence of his own head, and then sometimes the mind is a hurricane. It's almost like we're discussing the things we think about, how we react to those, or what we do internally, mentally. What the results of that is that it just becomes too much. And I think that maybe goes back to what we were talking about with songs like What You Think and Out to Sea, where the actions of other people are, as well as stuff that are outside of our control. I think we talked about our mother passing away, rest in peace, with stuff that would absolutely it would really, it's terrible. So it makes sense that would affect us like that. I think I'm really proud of Howard for showing that vulnerability within this record, but being able to make such incredible music out of it. The bass solo in that interlude section was tremendous. It was very subtle, and I've said subtle a few times, but it was still easy to hear, and I suppose that's also credit to the quality of post-production, that things were EQ'd and sort of leveled well enough in the stereo field as well as the frequency spectrum to be able to sort of get all of that detail. But I think to go back to what I was talking about initially, the dun 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 dun, that octave oscillation there between the two, for the guitars, bass and drums just going to pump out for the chorus. It was just tremendous ABAB, and we smashed it. Of course, we had the bridge in between where the drums had come in and would slowly get to that point. It wasn't just a complete ABAB. There was like an ABC kind of structure, but you know what I mean. As a final note, I think that Howard's vocals in this were really, they were, how do I describe it? I'm trying to think of words I haven't used before. We are very comfortable within who we are as an individual at this point, and comfortable with in front of the mic, and that experience is showing here. And I think that we couldn't have done more to improve that side of things with the way things were sung, the melodies, harmonies, extra bits that were spoken, and the and all those bits of character and interpretation are just divine. And welcome to the conclusion of my review of this album from an act named Howard Lewis titled Survival Modes and Things. Now, what I think this album is about, I think if we look at the tracks individually and sort of like go over them, because I know I've had conclusions for each track, so I'm not going to go too much into them within this that I've already said before, but with I Don't Trust Myself, I think basically commenting on how they don't trust themselves or have faith in themselves, looking at their insecurities versus how the other people look at them and whether they want them or not. What you think being about the story they have and the difficulties they're struggling with, then also dealing with the assumptions that other people make about them, out to see where they're trying to sort of establish connections with those people, but then like they're just like, oh, okay, well, you know, you can just get rid of me if you want, the whole 6 feet under thing, or go out to sea to wash myself off my body and everything like that. It gets incredibly dark. And then Hurricane, where we're talking about all the stuff that's really critically affected us and how heavy it all is, and then basically how it affects us internally, and then that quietness compared to the chorus with the loudest of the guitars and bass and drums just really kind of highlights that contrast between the moments where things are peaceful and then when things become just too much. I think these themes that we've discussed here make sense within the scope of an album. I think they're well explored. The lyrics are engaging, creative, and fulfilled, and they're just interesting to listen to. And part of what also makes them interesting to listen to is the way that they're sung by Howard. Now, Howard is a good singer. Howard's a great singer. I like the fact that we're comfortable in the head and chest voice, the fact that we're clearly comfortable in front of a microphone and we're experienced. But it's also just the character, the performance there, the drama to it, the attention to detail, the charisma, not just with the melodies, but the harmonies here, with the ad-libs and various overdubs and call and responses and stuff like that. There's absolutely no filler, and it's to the point. It's calculated but authentic and genuine, and we have these wonderful movements between like a head and chest voice with some falsetto parts, and it's wonderful. I don't think we skipped a beat here. We allowed, in tracks like What You Think, where we allowed like the second half of the track to basically be instrumental as well. We knew when to not overstep things and allow the rest of the bits to speak for us. And just in general, I don't know how we could have improved this. It's very much a personal journey for Howard. That much is clear from not just the story, but also the way we sung. The weight of the performance carried through us, not just with how that is, but also the way we tied it into what was happening with the instruments. Because this album, it features 4 tracks with, I Don't Trust Myself, tracks like that, and What You Think being shorter, with Out to Sea and Hurricane being longer. And I think we nailed both the short and the longer form tracks. We had our typical sort of like verse choruses in our intros and outros, but we also had some solo sections where we were relying on like the guitar or the bass here. We also had some really interesting drum patterns and tracks like What You Think, which really blew me away. And the keys as well, they are more subtle in this. But they nonetheless were very affecting and potent. If I talk about a few of the instruments I really liked, the drums were just absolutely sensational. I love the various sort of the swingish kind of grooves. We had some of the 1816 note shuffles we had there, the triplet patterns there, mixture of various kind of like, there was some rock elements, there's some bluesy kind of elements, there's almost some sea shanty kind of stuff as well. There's all sorts of fun concepts put there from a percussive perspective. The whole entire kit was explored, and there was not a note out of step. It was like I was listening to a click track, but like someone who has got all the feel of a professional percussionist, and it was sensational to hear that through. I got a lot of love for it too. Like, genuinely, I think that if we were to look at this track from I think we knew when to step away from that NTP drums, and when we knew when to put them back in. And that the same goes for the guitars. We had motifs that when there were solos that come into the forefront and sort of speak their truth, and we had some interesting passages such as Out to Sea with a dedicated section there. That was a nice foil for what Howard was doing. But then when we weren't there or on the sides with Hurricane, we were kind of coming and kind of blitz our way into the sides and kind of really fill things out. Or with What You Think, where things would be a bit more sort of arpeggiated, and generally just really, it's well placed. I think the sort of the misty, overdriven tones there with that warmth and grit there was a nice texture that served well on top of the more sort of succinct percussive parts. The bass line was more sort of like subtle and in the low end, and just really kind of, it was very foundational. We didn't need more than we did with that. It fulfilled its purpose, rolling around in unison with some of like the pentatonic patterns and tracks like What You Think, but then also just stuck with the root notes of the chord progressions in other sections and was just very reliable. I mean, there was lots of movement as well, and like I Don't Trust Myself with that. We would da 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 da. We would kind of follow those melodies there for again a great sense of unison. And so like the bass was nice and versatile and did the job where it needed to. It was it was calculated. There was clear consideration put in place and there's clear expertise on show. But it's also the keys. The keys were more subtle than I was expecting. I think that they were equal in purpose to the guitars, the bass, and the drums. I think that's exactly what we needed here. We needed to be a fully fleshed out sort of equivocation there with like a whole entire team effort with a wonderful chemistry there. And we had that. I think that it served a similar purpose to the guitars in the mid to higher range there. A bit clean, with the guitars being a bit cleaner and I Don't Trust Myself. They worked well to sort of like work alongside those steels, but then when we had the overdrive as well with the sort of like the keyish organ tones there, they were more sort of like subtle than those distorted parts, were a bit cleaner, and they meshed well because of that too. I don't think any instrument was overplayed. The themes within this track verged from, again, the sea shanty stuff I talked about, sort of more sort of like poppy alternate stuff. I'm never good at placing genres on things. There's too many inferences to place here. Whatever direction we were going for, each track had its own sort of similar kind of concept that I defined in their initial conclusions, and it showed here that Howard Lewis can basically manipulate what's going on there compositionally to suit the needs of both the story and the backing. In general, I don't think there was a note out of place. There was a great chemistry between the elements in the mix. Nothing seemed like it didn't know where it needed to be. And really well handled. I mean, we've just got the studio recording, mixing, and mastering to talk about now. And I think in that regard, the way the vocals were done, the dynamic range with the difference between the quiets and the louds here, the phrasing of the guitars, bass, drums, and keys with how the vocals were stacked, the balancing of the frequency spectrum in the stereo field with no resonant frequencies there, things nice and wide in stereo field and getting even wider, like in some of those tracks like Hurricane where things get even bigger. It's just tremendous. It didn't seem overproduced. There was a genuine sense of it just being like a passion project, but this is from a musician who could actually have a career if they continue to make stuff like this, if they don't already have a career already. And it's just, I think that with it being nice and loud without pumping, this is just a really stellar effort with everyone involved. And I think Howard ought to be proud of themselves, because this is my review of this album titled Survival Mode and Things. This album from Howard Lewis, and hopefully enjoyed it. If you did, please go show him some love via the various social medias and Bandcamp page. And just before I go, remember this is out on November the 3rd if you want to listen through it. Stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as either help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.